Morning to Decorah UU. As you may have heard before we officially started, my name is Karen Estrel. My pronouns are she, her, and I am glad to have you with us in this service today. We are a welcoming, lay-led spiritual community moving together in time in an open search for truth and meaning. We believe in people's inherent capacity to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment, pursuing the good of humanity. Just a reminder, this service is being both live streamed and recorded. Anything you say will therefore be publicly available online. I'll also take this moment to encourage folks who can and would like to share their video to do so. Although we typically ask everyone to stop their video during presentations, it is otherwise wonderful for those who can see to see one another. If you are visiting us today, we welcome you. Please note that you can complete the form at decorahuu.org/contact-us to receive our weekly electronic newsletter or to learn more about our congregation. You can learn more about Unitarian Universalism at uua.org. Before we even started, I started talking about Zoom, but there's one announcement I wanted to wait until we were in the service itself to share, to make sure everybody knows about this. Starting November 1st, everybody who uses Zoom will be required to keep your Zoom software up to date before you'll be allowed to join a meeting. So sometimes people don't bother to update their software and it can become months and even years out of date. Zoom's not going to allow you to do that anymore. So if you're using Zoom on the phone, go to the App Store and make sure that it's up to date. If you're using Zoom on your computer and you're using the Zoom client, you can, when you're not in a meeting like right now, but when you're just logged into Zoom, so maybe after today's call, you can click on your profile picture and then choose check for updates to make sure that you're up to date. I want to make sure everybody gets this under their belts before November 1st. Otherwise, you could get really frustrated the next time you join a Zoom call and you can't get in because you're going to be forced to do an update at the time that you actually want to join the call. All right. We will have no service next Sunday, but we are going to have Sundays 2 in a row at the end of October. On October 24th, Restorative Work from Colonization to Restoration with Shelley Buffalo. What does restoration mean? And what can I do as a friend, ally, and accomplice to restore the harms of colonization? The Decorah UU is very pleased to host speaker Shelley Buffalo, Meskwaki Nation, in the special UU service falling between Indigenous Peoples Day, October 11th, tomorrow, and Native American Indian/Alaska Native Heritage Month, which is coming up next month in November. Carolyn Corbin will be your service leader. On October 31st, we'll have Day of the Dead with Sue Oddie. And thanks. We also have Decorah Community Food Pantry World Food Day on October 16th is a day to commit to ensuring that hunger is eradicated and to honor those who produce our food. The Decorah Community Food Pantry makes food available to food insecure people in Northeast Iowa, thanks to the dedication of our volunteers, staff, board members, and generous donors, including the congregations. There are many ways you can help. We need more volunteers, especially on Thursdays from 5 to 7 p.m. You could bring 16-ounce bottles of ketchup and oil to the pantry. That's a particular need right now. Monetary donations are always welcome. For further information, consult our website, which is decorahpantry.org, or call the pantry during daytime hours at 563-202-0872. Otter, just so you know, in the bulletin, it goes to decorahpantry.org, but right now the words say decorahfoodpantry.org. So you'll want to pull out the food next time you post that announcement.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So are there any other announcements that folks would like to lift up before we proceed to the rest of the service? If so, you can raise your virtual hand using reactions, or if you are on the phone only, you can press *6 to unmute. I'm not seeing anything happening here. Co-host, let me know if I'm missing something. Carolyn?
I just jumped in, thanks. On Tuesday, October 19th, Collective Action for Racial Equity, or CARE, will be meeting from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Good Shepherd Community Hall, and we'll have a special presentation by Joshua Ratel Khan, and he's going to talk about a program that I forget the name, but it's sort of a growth program for people who are sort of discovering our whiteness and what that means from a race perspective. So it'll be very great and very fun to see everybody in person, and everyone is welcome. Tuesday, October 19th from 6 to 7 p.m. at Good Shepherd Hall.
And I am putting that in the chat as well. Another thing that I want to go ahead and put in the chat right now is that I'm going to be referring to a lot of different hyperlinks that folks can follow to learn more about different things that we're exploring today. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the chat too, so that as we get to those things, y'all can just go directly to some of those websites if you are interested in it. I hope all of these come through okay. We'll see. Some of them might come through as regular text. Yeah, UUA.org is not being nice, but I think the rest of them are okay as far as what we're going to be talking about next. Okay, so any other announcements we need to share before proceeding? I think we're good. Feel free to interrupt me if I'm wrong. So today, our service is directly related to our monthly theme of courage. It seemed especially appropriate to talk about courage in this liturgical month. Our congregation's liturgical year goes from September to August and is informed by our annual theme. And we have adopted the practice of using the theme of the summer's UUA General Assembly as our theme for the year. This year, that theme is Circle Round for Justice, Healing, Courage. And October just felt like a good month to focus specifically on courage, because this month includes National Hispanic Heritage Month, which recognizes the contributions of Hispanic and Latinx Americans to our country's history, culture, and achievements. That month actually is September 15th to October 15th. So we're almost finished with that observation. It's also LGBT History Month, and National Coming Out Day is on the 11th, tomorrow. Indigenous People Day, which we mentioned, the 11th. World Sight Day, which draws attention to blindness and visual impairment, on the 14th. Intersex Awareness Day is coming up. It highlights the human rights issues faced by intersex people who are born with any of several sex characteristics that do not fit typical binary notions of male and female bodies. It's National Bullying Prevention Month. It's National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So the groups and individuals highlighted by these observances are, of course, just a sampling of those who demonstrate courage in the face of adversity, misunderstanding, and even violence. Let us all commit to being courageous as we continue to work toward a peaceful, just, and equitable world. And I'm going to ask Lyra to introduce our chalice lighting.
Our chalice lighting comes from the Sunday worship service held at General Assembly. Recognizing the importance of shared ministry and the many innovative approaches to worship created by congregations during the pandemic, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, UUA President, selected the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis to serve as worship leaders for this year's service. First Universalist has been a model of shared ministry and what it means to put the work of dismantling white supremacy and building anti-racist, anti-oppressive practices at the center of their ministry. They have been on the front lines in support of the movement for Black lives in Minneapolis, bringing spiritual care and moral leadership in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the important uprisings for justice that followed. Children and families are a vital part of their ministry, and they have been using creative approaches to engage all ages in worship during the pandemic. Their leadership exemplifies some of the best practices for the creativity, spiritual depth, and moral leadership that is possible when we embrace the work of shared ministry rooted in love and justice.
I'll get you to read the next page as well.
Oh. The Reverend Jennifer Crow, one of First Universalist ministers, will say a few additional words about the chalice lighting. You are then invited to remain on mute, but read along. The words will be on the screen and in the bulletin.
Thank you, Lyra.
Translating today is led by some of the members of First Universalist Church's single parents community. These families have been meeting faithfully.
I bet y'all can't hear it as well as I want you to. Hold on one moment. Let's try that.
Together over Zoom throughout the pandemic, offering care and support to each other during these challenging times. Please join us in lighting your own chalice as we light our chalice led by Reverend Sarah Smalley and these families.
Please join in the words for the lighting of the chalice.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law.
This is our great covenant.
In peace, to dwell together in peace,
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
Lolly, will you unmute, please, and share the opening words? Lolly, we can't hear you, honey. If you hover your cursor over your screen, you should see something that looks like a microphone with mute or unmute. You'll want to unmute. There you go.
All right, now I need the words back up again because I've got my face here. I don't know. Oh dear. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, but I don't have the I don't have the script in front of me. Hold on.
Okay. You may want to hide your video for now to be able to see the screen.
I don't know how to do that.
If you hover your cursor over where all the videos are, there should be a line that says something like hide thumbnail video when you hover your cursor over it. If you do that, it'll hide everybody's faces for a moment.
I don't see it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
We did do a run through before this, but y'all, not everybody was on the call at that point. So it was just Lolly's and my faces in the way at that point.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the script up and I can't. Hold on.
Another option would be for me to throw it in the chat if that's easier for you. You're back on mute. I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to try anyway. Hold on a second. Okay. We can hear you now, Lolly.
Okay.
Can you still see the screen?
Yeah, but the words are not, they're only in a small little box on the right-hand side of my screen.
Okay. And you can't see a way to make it bigger?
No, when I click on big, I mean, you know, something, I see
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah, okay. Let's
But
try.
I've got the words in a little box over my face.
I'm gonna put something in the chat. If you click on the chat feature.
Yeah, I've got the chat up. Yeah.
Okay, do you see the words that I just put in there? Is that easier to read? Send it
I
to
don't-
Otter. Let me just try it to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that, okay. Yeah, okay, here we go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Every year, the Unitarian Universalist Association has an annual meeting called General Assembly, affectionately known as GA, in which participants worship, witness, learn, connect, and make policy for the association through democratic process. Anyone may attend, and certified UU congregations can send voting delegates. This year's GA was our denomination's 60th assembly and our second virtual assembly held online to ensure a safe experience in the midst of a pandemic that is not yet over. As was mentioned earlier, the theme was Circle Round for Justice, Healing, Courage, and will be our congregation's annual theme for 2021-2022.
And then I put the next text in there. It should say during this.
Affectionately known as GA.
No,
no.
go down below 21 to 2020.
Oh, I see. Okay.
During this service.
During this service, we'll explore the theme through which readings, songs, and video clips from the 2021 General Assembly or inspired by it. Our opening song relates to the imagery of the circle. The idea expressed by the lyrics is echoed by the poem Outwitted by Edwin Markham, made popular by Eboo Patel, who often quotes it. Eboo is founder and executive director of the Interfaith Youth Corps and the author of the memoir Acts of Faith, which the Unitarian Universalist Association selected as its common read for 2012. Eboo also gave the Ware Lecture at the 2013 General Assembly.
And now I'm posting the poem that I'd like you to read.
Okay, Outwitted by Edwin Markham. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in.
And now I've posted one more thing for you to read before we move on to the song.
Okay. The song's lyrics include no one stands alone. We'll stand side by side. This metaphor for inclusion is a strong one, but as we sing, listen, and read, think about other ways we can express solidarity without using standing language, recognizing that for many people, literally standing can be painful or even impossible activity. Please remain on mute, but feel free to sing along with our opening song, Draw the Circle, music by Mark A. Miller, words by Gordon Light. Words are on the screen and in the bulletin.
And I am going to play the song. I will note that I'm not going to play the video all the way through because it repeats, and while the repetition is beautiful, there's so much that I'd like us to get to before we're finished today. So if it seems like a rather abrupt conclusion, I'm sorry I don't have like a fade out feature on my computer, but I hope that you'll enjoy what you hear.
by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide.
There we go. All right. I believe, looking back at my notes here, I think that I'm going to be doing the introduction to the land acknowledgement. All right. As we learned during the introduction of the chalice lighting this year's GA Sunday worship was conducted by First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. The Twin Cities are among the metropolitan areas closest to Decorah. I always have to tell people this when they find out I'm from Iowa. Like I work with people in Atlanta and they're like, oh, so you're close to Des Moines. I'm like, no, I'm close to the Twin Cities. I'm close to Madison. I'm not close to Des Moines. Recognizing the connection that many of us feel to that land and always open to learning from others how to engage in decolonization and reconciliation, we are going to listen to / read the land acknowledgement that First Universalist shared.
We welcome you to this place and space. We come to you today from Minneapolis, Minnesota, from First Universalist Church, from the shores of Bede-Makaska and the contemporary and traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe and Dakota peoples, the original stewards of this land. We come to you uplifting the name of these lands and the community members from these nations who reside alongside us. We come to you from Falcon Heights, from Brooklyn Center, and from George Floyd Square. We acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country, the genocide, enslavement, and ongoing occupation and oppression that has impacted Indigenous communities, communities of color, and immigrant and other communities, the culture of colonization and white supremacy that injures us all. We acknowledge the communities of resistance that continue to side with love, teaching us through their persistence, courage, and creativity that another way is possible. Here in this particular place, and in all of the places that you are, we invite you to bring your full self into the present moment. Breathing in and breathing out, we connect across space and time. We heal ourselves and each other as we tell the truth in love. Welcome once again to this shared experience of hope and healing.
This is the time in our service when we invite anyone with a personal joy, concern, or milestone in your life to share that. I will pause recording.
We hold each other's lives in our hands. The coronavirus thrived where individual freedom took precedence over the well-being of others. It thrived along the deep-seated racism and poverty that have long defiled our social bonds. and it made the reality of our interdependence undeniable. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe in our fundamental interdependence. Connectedness that has led us throughout our history to engage in the work of justice. We know we belong to each other and to a vision of a world where our Universalist ancestors called it the kingdom of God. Today we call it the beloved community. It is how we articulate the highest aspirations we have for ourselves, humanity, and our world. And no, we don't live our aspirations perfectly. We never will. That is why our best covenants address how we repair relationships after we have hurt one another and broken our promises. Covenant is not a burden, but an incomparable gift. A gift reflected in our capacity to love and to create enduring friendships. It is why we find hope and strength through solidarity. It is how we can feel so deeply held by religious community and changed by its presence in our lives. None of us can fully imagine the future, but this we know. What we knew as normal, the status quo, was already deadly. We cannot go back. The life-saving practices that helped us survive are what we need to bring forward. We've long known that models of religious life steeped in individualism, exceptionalism, scarcity, and competition do not meet the spiritual needs of this time. This year, we pulled together, leaning into our relationships as a covenantal faith. Congregations partnered in unprecedented ways, sharing resources, worship, learning together, sharing staff, even merging communities to better live their mission. We centered compassion, care, and mutuality. We offered tools for resilience, ritual, and embodied practice, liberating theology and religious community rooted in belonging and prophetic power. And we learned even more about living our faith bravely and publicly, lessons of organizing in solidarity with the movement for Black lives, mobilizing to go all in to defend democracy, and opening our sacred buildings to save lives. This is no time for a casual faith. This is a time for audacious love that is inextricably linked to courageous action. And this is no time to go it alone. We belong to each other, and we need one another to survive. Covenant, honoring our interconnectedness, creating more intentional and ever-widening practices of inclusive belonging. This is how we survive. In this unimaginably difficult year, we have come to more deeply understand the gift of being a covenantal faith. I remain so incredibly grateful for this faith and for the honor of serving as your president. Thank you to all of you for the ways you continue to say yes to this life-affirming, life-saving, compassionate, and prophetic faith. I love you all.
It is now the time for our offering. Even though we are meeting via Zoom, we continue to require the gracious gifts of our members and friends to support our congregation. We understand that present circumstances and uncertainty may affect your ability to provide financial support at this time, but if you can and would like to give and you're online, please visit decorahuu.org and click on the Give Online button in the middle of the page to learn of numerous ways to give, which include, but are not limited to, PayPal. There are ways, for example, to set up an automatic monthly donation. If you cannot or prefer not to give online, you may mail your check to Decorah UU, PO Box 382, Decorah, Iowa 52101. Our plate recipient for September through October is the Decorah Free Clinic, which provides healthcare and education to uninsured and underinsured individuals in our extended community. If you'd like to learn more about the Decorah Free Clinic, please visit decorahfreeclinic.com. To donate to the Decorah Free Clinic, designate so on your check if you're mailing one. If you're using PayPal on our website, you can select the Share the Plate from the dropdown. Thank you to all of you who contribute in many ways to the continuing life of our congregation, our community, and our world. Please stay on mute, but sing along with the offertory, for which I have attempted using a recording from First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco. As has been the case prior to this, this is an embedded video from YouTube, so it will likely conclude with suggestions for other videos. I have no control over what video it may suggest for us to watch next.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Lolly, I had seen that you'd posted in the chat, how do I turn off the closed captions? And I don't know if anybody had responded to you, but there should be an option. I can't see it right now because I'm a host, but if you hover your cursor over the screen, you get a toolbar that allows you to turn on or off the closed captions.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
On my toolbar, it's labeled live transcript.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Overview of the actions of immediate witness. At the 2021 GA, delegates passed 3 actions of immediate witness known as AIWs. The AIW process offers delegates the opportunity to engage in collective social witness, to courageously affirm what is just and good through a statement that demonstrates solidarity with those who are mistreated, or that imagines and articulates social justice or collective liberation. Unlike a statement of conscience, which we'll talk about later, an AIW does not carry the full authority of the Unitarian Universalist Association. It instead expresses the conscience and carries the authority of the delegates at the GA at which it is passed. If GA delegates adopt an AIW, we really love acronyms, then the UUA or other UUA leaders, congregations, districts, and UU organizations may use it as a basis for public statements on the matter and are urged to act on it. So in other words, because the assembly passed these AIWs, if our congregation wants to take action on any of these issues, we have these public statements available that we can refer back to as we do our work in the world of social justice. The 3 AIWs that were affirmed this year were: 1, defend and advocate with transgender, non-binary, and intersex communities; 2, the COVID-19 pandemic, justice, healing, courage; and 3, stop voter suppression and partner for voting rights and a multiracial democracy. You can read the full text of each of these by visiting uua.org/GA/past. So GA stands for General Assembly. Past is obviously a history. 2021 for this past year, business/AIWs. And I did post it in the chat as well earlier. So the next thing that we're going to look at from General Assembly, and you'll see my read by blank. It's read by me, Karen. The UUA president, in consultation with the General Assembly Planning Committee, invites a distinguished guest each year to deliver the Ware Lecture. The first Ware Lecture was given in 1922 at the May meeting of the American Unitarian Association, that was known as the AUA. The lecture has been given nearly every year since, first at the AUA May meetings, and then after the 1961 merger at the UUA General Assembly. Previous Ware lecturers have included the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Kurt Vonnegut, and poet Mary Oliver. You can visit uua.org/ga/program/highlights/Ware-lecture for more of the history of this lecture, as well as the full list of distinguished speakers. This year's Ware lecturers were Stacey Abrams and Desmond Meade. Stacey Abrams is the New York Times bestselling author of Our Time Is Now and Lead from the Outside. I'm not going to read her whole bio here, but I'm happy to share it with anybody who's interested in it. It's also on the UUA website. But a lot of you may know her as the Democratic candidate for Georgia's governor, who, despite winning more votes than any other Democrat in the state's history, lost the election in an election that was marked by accusations of voter fraud. Desmond Meade is a formerly homeless returning citizen referring to an individual who was previously incarcerated. And among his accomplishments include working toward the successful passage of Amendment 4 in Florida, which restored voting rights to over 1.4 million Floridians with past felony convictions. So a lot of people who are denied the right to vote because of something that they've already served time for now have the right to vote, at least in Florida, which brought an end to 150 years of a Jim Crow era law. There are a lot more interesting things about Desmond as well, including the fact that one of his books is published by Beacon Press, the UUA's publishing house. So there are a few video clips that I would love to show you from the Ware lecture, but I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to just share a couple of them. And these are ones that I cannot embed into a PowerPoint. And so I'm going to have to try to show it to you on screen in Vimeo, where for some reason it just decided to take me to my Vimeo homepage instead of what I had preloaded for you to watch. So I'm going to try to take you to a couple of different timestamps of things that I think you'll find interesting. And then I'm going to encourage you to visit the website. If you go to uua.org, you can get through to the Ware lecture and you can watch the entire thing online. It's definitely worth watching. In the meanwhile, I will show you what I can in the time that we have.
It is not magic. And the way we take that medicine is that we make sure that our diagnosis is correct. We have to—
Let me stop one moment. So she just said that voting is medicine. It is not magic.
To talk about what's happening. We can't let people gaslight us into believing it's all in our heads. We have a website through Fair Fight called stopjimcrow2.com. Stopjimcrow2.com. And the reason we call it that, it to some seems hyperbolic, it's not. And you know this better than almost anyone. Jim Crow never once listed race as a predicate for denying you the right to vote. Instead, it targeted behaviors that were disproportionately used by communities of color to stop them from exercising the right to vote. And so in Florida, what they've done is they've put fees and fines on returning citizens to block them from accessing their right to vote. In Georgia, they're going to require that you submit paperwork that you may or may not have in order to use a right that they have enjoyed for 15 years, but suddenly it's dangerous when Black people for the first time exceeded white voters in voting by mail. They are getting rid of you. They've made it illegal to get water and food in 8-hour lines, even though they are creating the lines that necessitate being there for 8 hours. And so we have to remember If we want people to vote, we've got to, number one, talk about what's in their way, but not as a permanent impediment, but as a temporary barrier. But if people don't know the barriers are there, when they run into them, they think it's their fault. They think it's their user error. So we've got to be really clear that it is not you, it is them. You're not paranoid, they really are after you. But the second part is that it works when we do it. That in 2020 and in 2021 in Georgia, we used that power and we changed the future. And so it is the medicine of voting that makes things happen, but we've got to be really concrete about that. One, that the barriers are real, but two, that the power is real. And then the third piece we have to do is that we cannot wait until there is a candidate on the ballot to talk about voting. Voting has nothing to do with politicians. It has everything to do with policy. I am someone who has run for office, has not run for office, and it does not matter for me. It is about what politics and policies do I need to see made real, not who's on the ballot, but what can I decide? And when we take politics out of voting, and I know that sounds naive, but what I mean is when we take the politicians out of voting and we return to the policies and the people, then we get more done. Last thing I'll say is this: we were in Georgia, we were able to remove a district attorney who had enjoyed re-election, but she refused to charge the men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery in broad daylight. And the power of the vote was not about her. It wasn't even about the person who replaced her. It was the power of the people who realized they had the right to demand someone in that office who saw his death as worthy of justice. We have to stop letting politicians become our reasons for voting and return to the place where it's about the policies we need. So one, talk about the fact that suppression is real, but it's not a permanent barrier. Two, talk about the power we have shown to make change happen. And three, always connect it back to the policies we need to make our lives better.
And I'm going to skip ahead to something that Desmond Meade shared later during the lecture.
In which they're engaged, that's being democratic process the way. The other thing that I would probably say is understand your role. You know, I'd always like to share the story about the ham and cheese omelet, right? That the ham and cheese omelet is a great way to distinguish between whether you're committed to something or contributing to something, right? And understanding that in the ham and cheese omelet, you have the eggs, the ham, and the cheese, right? And the milk in some cases. And we know that the cheese and the milk comes from the cow, and the egg comes from the chicken, and the ham comes from the pig. Well, the cow made a contribution to the ham and cheese omelet. The chicken made a contribution to the ham and cheese omelet. The pig, however, made a commitment to the ham and cheese omelet. The pig was willing to give his life. He had to. There was no, I can give a little and come back and leave and come back the next day. And so understanding, you know, that that is a distinct difference between commitment and a contribution, and realizing that the people who are closest to the pain, the people who have nothing else to lose and who have decided to give their life towards changing their conditions, they are the pig. Then understand that you're not the pig, but you're either the cow or the chicken, right? But you're not the pig. And you need to play your role, right? And here's the thing. In order to have a delicious ham and cheese omelet, you need the ham, the cheese, and the egg. You need those ingredients. So we need everyone contributing together to create a better world for us, but know the lane that you're in, right? And know the fact that, you know, what you're doing might, you know, really could be a contribution to the cause. And you have to let the people that are committed to the cause lead the way.
So I myself am a vegetarian. I don't have ham and cheese omelets, but I found that metaphor of the ham and cheese omelet to be particularly striking in terms of understanding whether you're contributing or whether you're committed, and making sure that if it's a cause to which you want to contribute, but to which you don't have the same level of investment as someone who's committed, that you let those who are committed be the ones who are centered, who are leading the way. I found that to be pretty powerful. We don't have a lot of more time left. I do want to note that many other things happened at General Assembly, including the fact that there were responsive resolutions that passed. Those are things that can happen kind of as the business of General Assembly is happening. If a committee or an executive an officer gives a report, then the assembly delegates can say, you know what, let's resolve based on what you said in your report that we do something about that. And so one of them was actually related to the idea of the 8th principle that we've talked about before. The responsive resolution called on the board to ensure that the principles include a clear and direct statement that we must have accountable systemic anti-racist and anti-oppressive actions to build beloved community. That passed with 91%. There was another one that asked that the UUA endowment fund divest from fossil fuels, pipelines, and institutions that invest in them, requested that young adults be involved in related discussions. That passed with 80% in favor. You can read the full text of each resolution again online. There's also the statement of conscience. That is like a serious thing from the UUA. In our case, in 2021, the delegates overwhelmingly supported the passage of a statement of conscience known as an SOC, affirming UU commitment to undoing systemic white supremacy. So unlike responsive resolutions or AIWs that kind of carry the weight of the General Assembly delegates, but not the entire denomination, the statement of conscience is a commitment of the entire association. Again, you can read more about that online, and I will show you. If you go to uua.org/ga/pass/2021, that is the place to go for information about General Assembly, particularly this past year. And you can see all sorts of on-demand videos as well as transcripts, etc. So I really encourage you to go there. The other place is in uuworld.org. They have an awesome article that does a great overview of everything that happened there. So please take a moment if you have the time to visit that. Thank you for sticking with me as we worked through this. Ellen, could I get you to do the introduction to the closing song and read the final chalice extinguishing?
Yes. The Synergy Bridging Workshop Service honors UU youth bridging into young adulthood and reaffirms our commitment to multi-generational community. This year's service, planned by youth and young adults, included a performance of Blue Boat Home. We will play that song at the conclusion of our service after we extinguish the chalice.
Please read this too.
Extinguishing the chalice. This is the message of our faith: to act with passion in the face of injustice, to love with courage in the midst of life's pain. This is the meaning of our chalice flame. May it empower our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you so much. So I am going to play that final song that Ellen just read about from the Synergy worship. That's another thing that I can't embed, so I'm going to be playing here for you. And if you have to say goodbye while it's playing, that's fine. But if you want to stay on to listen to this beautiful song, please do. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we will not see you next Sunday, but we will see you in 2 Sundays on Zoom. Thanks, everybody.
I've been sailing all my life.
Constant questions companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
It was lovely to have y'all. And Melanie, it's good to visit with you virtually. Everybody have a great Sunday.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, y'all.